My name is Elisabete Ramalho. I am originally from Portugal. I've always been very passionate about, technology and what we can actually do with that. I actually started my career in manufacturing. And technology is part of manufacturing and how you automate processes. And I always found it such a great opportunity. I actually have a master in technology and information. So my love then went into academia, and then by joining a big tech company. For me, STEM is very important, especially because it brings across, the four areas, right, from math to sciences to technology and to engineering. And in a world where technology plays such, an important role in people's lives, within our family, within our broader community, within our work, it is very hard not to be actually part of it. I would say that STEM education is actually the basics for the knowledge that we have, and it's been not only today, it's been for as long as we can think about humanity, think about the math, think about the processes behind engineering. They have been always there, and sciences obviously is the place where we learn so much about what is around us and how things actually behave in the world. STEM education is definitely at the core of any type of knowledge that you want your kids to have, your children, how they interact with the world, how they get to know it. It's very important that they understand, for example, how math actually connects with the other ones, with technology, with programming, and more, how it helps, develop and improve the field, of sciences. I think that whether it is, like elementary school or, later, in the education, we cannot really understand the world without, that angle. And, if I think about my kids, they connected with technology much earlier, in their lives than I did. In a very, kind of balanced way. They have an eagerness to learn, how things are built. And this, goes into more the field of engineering, whereas, math for them is pretty fascinating. And technology, even more, because that's how they enter, the world, and they enter, kind of the web. They love to read books as much as they love to watch documentaries, for example, on some of the technology platforms that are out there. So the way also, our kids learn today is really multimodal. It's visual, it's very, through audio, with, for example, even listening books through, audio platforms. So the way they learn, the way they experience, it's so important that if they have an understanding of the technology, of the fundamentals behind that, I strongly believe that they will be set for success. So we made a conscious decision, as parents, to actually have our children in a Montessori model, which means they are not really, let's say, exposed so much to technology, but they are learning, for example, math and sciences in ways that is not so common in other type of educational systems. We believe that, in our community, for example, we have the Familia Centrums, where we can bring our kids to camps, like the Little Scientists, where they can actually learn in a much more focused way about how to program, robotics and to program, some kind of other tools and other possibilities like Scratch and so on. And this is really to build, kind of the elementary knowledge for them to understand what coding is and how it helps us build things in our real world. I think that probably if I compare, with the times of my parents, kind of when myself and my sisters were growing up, I think probably at that time there were more challenges, especially because STEM was not so, I would say, embedded into the educational system, or at least so early in the educational system, whereas these days it's coming much earlier. I am, very curious about, these fields. Maybe other parents are not so, curious, but they, are into arts, or into humanities or something else. I think that the challenge is more often, if there is one, is what the child really wants to learn, what they want to be part of, and how STEM can actually be part of it. The educational system also plays, a big role, in my view, on how they get motivated, for example, for math, or even, for sciences. I think that the community and, especially the schools, and other groups like family centrums, where families basically come together, bring their children to different activities, they definitely play a role in STEM education. They also play a role, in other areas, of life, like arts, and again, humanities, like I mentioned. I think that because especially robotics and now, with AI and generative AI, there's definitely, a higher motivation, I would say, for communities to engage in those activities, to bring them earlier to our children and spark that curiosity. I still believe that, often STEM education, also because of the cost involved with it, is probably more accessible to children and to families that, have higher means. I wish, there was a day where every single child, regardless of background, could actually access the type of knowledge that, others have access to. I would say that it really comes, from the curiosity that you spark in your children from early ages. We were very deliberate, at home to get them to books when they were a couple of months old, to read to them, and we were reading about, the outer space, about the dinosaurs, and other topics. And I'm sure, many parents do exactly, what we are doing. I think that for the future, it's really about how can you understand what is the talent and what are the interests of your child in this area, and how can we support them along the way. I'm not, from the field of sciences or, engineering, but I can help with math and technology. So it's really understanding, kind of how each one of us as parents can help our kids when they are really into this area, of life, and bring them along the knowledge, but also in being part of a community, being part of a learning group, for example, and staying curious all the time until they choose later in life what they actually want to become. It is really, down to what is best for the family, for the children, with an eye on what are the future skills that will make any child, any young adult successful in their lives. Especially in a context, where we see so much evolution from a technology perspective, math is fundamental to that. From a science perspective, that is so advanced now with the help of technology and especially AI. And at the same time, how engineering, how processes, how manufacturing is really evolving as all of these kind of come together. And most important, don't be afraid. Embrace what your children are really into, support them along the way, and help them make choices that will make them really happy and successful in the future.